Hi, good evening. I'd like to welcome you to Poem Praise 2. I do thank you for tuning in, and peace and blessings be upon you and your family this evening. Now we are going to get right back into For Women Only. We are in chapter number 6. This is going to be take number 3. And it goes like this. Step 3. But every man can make a choice to dwell on the images and thoughts or to dismiss them. This choice is a critical distinction between temptation and sin. Once an image intrudes in a man's head, he can either linger on it and possibly even start a mental parade or tear it down immediately and take every thought captive, as the Bible put it. Men I talk to make rigorous decisions to avoid unwanted visual invitations. Most of the men I talk to take the choice extremely serious. They make rigorous decisions to avoid unwanted visual invitations, to turn away from those that arise. And when unwanted pictures arise anyway, to rip them down with all sorts of divisionary tactics. I heard that mentally running through baseball scores and household projects were popular thought substitutes. Honestly, it sounds exhausting. So, although a few men can stop an involuntary image from popping up in their heads, and few men can stop themselves from wanting to look, they can and do exercise the discipline to stop themselves from actually doing so. On the survey, the biggest factor in whether a man made this choice wasn't whether he was older, married, or happy in his relationship. All those mattered, but in small numbers. It was whether he regularly attended religious services. Confirming this, nearly half of the men on the follow-up churchgoers survey said they would try to stop themselves from looking. It is vital that we understand just how much strength and discipline that choice requires so that we can appreciate what our men try to do for us every day in the minefield of a culture. And now for some reassurances. It's also vital to recognize that after all these generalizations, there are several critical reassuring elements which are just as which are just as much a part of a man's inner life. A lot of this is simply about admiring beauty. It's like looking at a painting. Reassurance number 1. His temptation is often not primarily sexual. One distinction I heard repeatedly from men was that wanting to look often wasn't primarily sexual. Instinctive, yes. Physical, sure, but not necessarily sexual. One man told me, what you may not realize is that a lot of this is simply about admiring beauty. It is pleasurable to look at that good-looking woman. It's like looking at a painting. You're not just thinking, let's go to a motel and shack up. Women don't necessarily look at a man and admire him as a thing of beauty, but men will do that. It's like walking through an art gallery. A man may look despite himself, but it's not necessarily a sexual thing. Reassurance number 2. Every man is different. Also, because every man is different, every man experiences a different level of visual temptation. For some men, an involuntary sensual image may be little more than a nuisance, while others might find it a real stumbling block. Here's a comparison that some of us might recognize all too well. At a dessert party, I might struggle for 2 hours with the fact that a chocolate mousse cake is across the room, calling my name. But the person standing next to me might be able to put the temptation out of her mind. Don't you just hate those people? Is in parentheses. Since everyone is different, we shouldn't jump to conclusions or pass blanket judgments. Reassurance number 3. It's not because of you. Upon learning all of this, some of us may secretly wonder, what's wrong with me? Am I not attractive enough? We suspect that our husband's struggles arise because of our own flaws, not just because he's a man. But hearing this from every man I interview made clear that this truly is, as the title of a popular book puts it, every man's battle. In the biblical book of Job, the title character makes a telling statement. I made a covenant with my eyes not to look with lust upon a young woman. Why would Job need to take such a step? God describes him as the finest man in all the earth, a man of complete integrity. Job 1:8. Surely the finest man in all the earth wouldn't even have this struggle. But Job was a man. You love your husband as a man, and this is part of what makes him a man. Even if you wear a bikini model, your husband would still have this vulnerability. Furthermore, many men echoed this husband sentiment. You have to realize, if men could, most would shut off their temptation to look at other women in a second. We loathe this temptation as much as our wives do. Why would Job need to take such a step? God described him as the finest man in all the earth. Reassurance number 4. This doesn't impact his feelings for you. Finally, and most important, we must grasp this fact. A man's human temptation has, as one man put it, no impact whatsoever on my feelings for my wife. A man married more than 25 years explained, there is no relationship with the woman who catches your eye. With your wife, you have a deep and long and meaningful relationship. There is no competition there. Yes, your mind may make the observation that this other woman is 20 years younger and has never had 2 kids. But that is all it is, an observation. And that observation is immediately offset by other factors, such as the fact that you love your wife. In one small group interview, all the men agreed with that statement and added, in the words of one, "It is truly just an observation. There is nothing on earth that would be worth the price of going beyond that. I would never risk losing my wife." In fact, if other women seem to want to catch your husband's eye, then men provide an ironic reassurance. One husband explained, "When a guy is married and his wife loves him, his self-confidence goes up, and suddenly that makes him more attractive somehow. So if other women are trying to catch your man's eye, it actually means that you are building him up and that he adores you." I'm going to repeat that just to reiterate that for you. So, if other women are trying to catch your man's eye, it actually means that you are building him up and that he adores you. So what's a woman to do? For many of us on these issues, it would be so easy to move from understanding to alarm, to the charge of the light brigade, to get anxious or suspicious of our men and get all fired up to change them. But in the book's introduction, I said that these revelations are meant to change us. Yes, men can and should do things to keep their thoughts, life, pure. Thought lives is plural, pure. Yes, men should do things to honor the women they love, but many such books have been written by expert psychiatrists, counselors, and ministry leaders. This book is for us women alone. So what do? Pray for him and for us. This is the most powerful and meaningful way to your partner with the men in our lives. But it's often the most overlooked. There's a little verse in Psalms 127, "Unless the Lord protects a city, guarding it with sentries will do no good." We can work to help and protect our husbands and our marriage. But in the end, that's the Lord's job. Furthermore, ask God to protect your heart as well, so that instead of feeling anger or hopelessness, you have the encouragement you need to protect your husband in prayer from the onslaughts of this culture. Your husband needs your steadfast prayers more than anything else. And as we do business with the Lord, we will also better understand what he wants from us. Do we love the men in our lives for who they are or for who we want them to be? And I'm going to just reiterate that because I kind of like that line. It almost seems like a partnership right here in regards to having a business partner. And the statement is, "And as we do business with the Lord, we will also better understand what he wants from us." So that's going to end this take for take number 3 on chapter 6. It's going to be take number 4 for our next take, which is going to start off with check your heart. So I want you and your family to be blessed and have a wonderful rest of the evening. Until I talk with you again here on Poem Praise 2. Later, y'all.